Hi, Dr. Pulsifer here to talk briefly about the fundamentals of RPG creation, which involves two subjects, whether it's a business or a hobby, and RPG design versus design of other games. So I'm getting two birds with one stone. First, in tabletop RPGs, almost no one makes a living, so for most it's a hobby, not a job. This tends also to be true in video games, although for different reasons. Second, RPG design is still game design, but with altered conditions, because there's no winner and no end to the game as a whole, especially in the tabletop, not so much in video, and because it's a cooperative game, not a competitive game, and not a puzzle. So, business versus hobby. Much of this class applies to both video and tabletop games, but in the business section I address mainly tabletop games. Though in fact, when you come down to the ultimate point, it's just as true for RPGs, and that is, for video RPGs, it's really hard to make a living in RPG design. So for most people, it's a hobby. Now, this doesn't mean you can't make money, but you're not going to make a lot of money. It's going to be your second job when it makes a lot less than your first job. There are many reasons, and I briefly discussed them in an upcoming screencast, and they're explained in great detail in Prisoners of Capitalism in the bonus material. Keep in mind that tabletop RPGs in particular are a very small segment of tabletop gaming, something like $15 million out of $700 million in the USA. And those numbers in turn are very small compared to video games. Now the other topic is designing RPGs versus designing other games. There are unique aspects to designing any particular genre of games. Now RPGs are unusual because they're cooperative games, and they're also episodic games, kind of like TV shows, without a clear end. You just have one episode after another. Frequently there's not even a victory condition. Now, tabletop RPGs are also quite different from computer RPGs. In tabletop, you have opposition that's guided by a human, the referee or the DM. In the other, it's programmed opposition. And human opposition always has at least the potential for being much smarter than programmed opposition. Also, of course, many computer RPGs have an ending and tabletops don't. Nonetheless, most of the principles of game design still apply. Now, in tabletop RPGs, because you have a human referee, whatever the players decide to do, a good referee can adapt to that and cope with it. Computer RPGs are largely pre-generated, limiting what you can do. Generating that content that has to be available in case players do something costs large amounts of money. So computer RPGs tend to involve very large budgets, and tabletop RPGs can have very small budgets. The business side is very different, as I've said before, and the design side is very different because in a tabletop RPG you can rely on the human referee, and in a video RPG you have to rely on programming. Now, entertaining the players is always the objective in any of these games, but in video games it's the game that's expected to entertain. In tabletop, the players entertain themselves through the game, and that's rather different.